Just dumb as a box of hair. Huh? What? I'm gonna put this down. This bitch is heavy. Like, an attempt was made. Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Jashana here to talk about some friggin' books. If you have watched probably more than 2 of my videos, you will know that City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert is one of my all-time favorite books. I adore it. I have the hardcover and the paperback. I've read both. I've listened to the audio. Thus far, I haven't fully read it this year yet, but I plan to soon, especially after this little project, because I need to inject some City of Girls into my brain. This is historical fiction, and I just love it so much, and I do enjoy historical fiction, generally speaking. This is obviously my favorite. This is one of my favorite books of any genre ever. And, you know, we're all, as readers, always chasing that high, right? That one of my all-time favorite books. I just want to scream about this. I cannot stop thinking about how good this is. I want to just constantly be reading this book always, forever, for the rest of my life. That feeling, it's such a good feeling. So I wanted to try to find some books that are like City of Girls. But what does that mean? It could mean different things to different people, of course. So I went perusing on Google, I think. This was last year, I want to say, or very early this year. And I can't even find the post again. I think it was a blog post. Could have been an article. I don't know. Someone wrote a thing, though. Found a webpage. There was books that are reminiscent of City of Girls. And of course, this is that person's personal opinion, but I liked this particular post or article or whatever it was because they were giving their reasons for thinking that these different historical fiction works were like City of Girls. The list was longer than the books that I put on my list because I was picking them based on what her explanations were and agreeing or not. There was a couple where I read it and then I read the synopsis of the book and I just didn't actually think that it would hit the spot for me. But I got a list of 5, I want to say. Was it 5? Yes. 5 books. Oh, no, actually it was 6. It was 6, yeah. 6 books, forgive me, that I thought sounded like, yeah, this could be like City of Girls in some fashion. I'm gonna put this down. This bitch is heavy. So, I first determined what I thought were gonna be books like City of Girls. All right, like what elements of that book really stick out for me as like key elements to that book. So I have my little checklist that I used to grade these books, and I actually don't recall the order. I think I did write them down in the order that I put them on the graphic, so we'll see. One thing is a theme of feminism and sexual freedom, especially. Just women's freedom to choose if you want to be a little bit more traditional and only have sex when you are in serious committed relationships or in love or married, go for it. If you want to sleep around because you think it's fun and it brings you some joy, go for it. Very much a message of that, and just feminism in general, like women being able to choose all the things about their lives. New York City setting, obviously a huge one. City of Girls, I think especially, like New York is like part of the story in a very deep way. And it's a very formative place for our main character. Another thing is a kind of momentous, life-changing moment, situation, and then a pretty hard life lesson learned from that situation. And in City of Girls, like the main character has this inciting incident happen that just kind of rocks her whole world. And there's a lot of self-reflection. There's a lot of humility surrounding the aftermath of that situation. There's a lot of her taking accountability and learning to take accountability. That is a key part of this checklist item. And then the authorial voice, the writing style, the charm and humor and wittiness in the dialogue between characters, in the descriptions of things, in the main point of view. Just all the writing just has this je ne sais quoi, this thing, this just inexplicable element to it that just spoke to me personally. Also, key thing is the main character being a very naive, sheltered, not very worldly girl in her younger years. This is kind of tied in with the feminism, sexual freedom thing, but I do think it's different of just independence in general and making your own way in the world. Doing whatever you want to do with your life, as long as you're not harming others, of course, but like, especially from a woman's perspective, but anyone could relate to that message, I think, of just, you don't have to do what society expects of you, what your family expects of you. You can make your own way in life. Another thing is the entertainment world of New York. City of Girls is like in a theater, in a playhouse. That's like a really huge part of it. And then also an older woman telling her life story to a younger woman, or just like you're hearing the perspective of this older woman like telling back her story. Some kind of connection, I guess, like a connection to a more modern current time and a woman in that time. And then lastly, idolizing very glamorous worldly women and girls was a big thing in City of Girls. Our main character, very naive, very sheltered, came from very waspy country club sheltered life, and then gets thrust into this theater off Broadway world with all these just glamazons, showgirls that she is just enamored with and wants to be like, and then other characters as well, more classy, elegant, glamorous characters that she just wants to be. So I do have some vlog footage. I will get into that now, and then afterward I will give my final grading for these books. Baby girl. Hi. What are you doing? Fussing? Yeah. Where are you going? Oh, there you are. Hey, don't get behind them. Hey, Lily. Hey. What are you doing? Hi, baby. Hi, come here. Come here. Lily. I don't know what you want. Okay, I don't remember the last thing I even said. Did I update that I finished the Showgirl? I don't remember if I did or not. At any rate, I finished it, and initially I was kind of like, okay, now it's feeling like, once I finished it, I initially thought like, oh, 3 stars maybe, I guess. But the more I think about it, it's like 2. I'm kind of pissed about this whole message that was presented. The whole adoption thing. She gave up a baby for adoption when she was young, and it was a baby from a sexual assault. And like, just the way she talked about it, it was fine that she was talking about it this way. I get that, like, the feelings of guilt, you know, I've heard women talk about that. I know that's a very real thing, that you can feel like a bad person because you did this, right? Especially if like later in life you are at a place where you now do want babies and are able to, and like, it depends on the person. Various people handle it differently, but like, I have seen where a lot of women do feel that guilt and like, I made a mistake, or I did a bad thing. So it wasn't like she was saying this kind of stuff and like being really hard on herself about it. And I was kind of like, okay. Expecting at some point that she was going to have a conversation with someone where like she would have a moment of clarity and like almost a moment of like emotional release of realizing I'm not a bad person because this happened and because this was the choice I made. I was just waiting for it. I was like, okay, she's being so hard on herself, literally saying that the person who took the baby in and adopted the baby, like, was a good person, or that she did that because she has a good heart, unlike me. And I'm like, what? Like, girl, you're being so hard on yourself. But again, I was just like waiting. It never happened. We never got any kind of like pushback on this message of I was a bad person for giving up my baby for adoption. Never got it. Where I'm like, To the point, like, she was so negative about it, and it never got addressed. And there was never a conversation of like, it's okay that you did this. And the resolution was, in the end, she got her man, and she got to go perform, and she got her baby back, and she got to be the mother. So all is well. And I was just like, I don't like this. Like, genuinely, I'm like, is the author against adoption? Like, does she think adoption is, like, evil or something? Because that's what it fucking seems like. And I cannot. So, yeah, it's like a 2.5 at this point. Honestly, maybe even 2. She was just an idiot also towards the end. I can't. I fucking can't. But all right, so The Dollhouse by Fiona Davis. This was my first Fiona Davis. She has so many books, historical fiction, just backlist like crazy. This is actually her debut novel. I did not know that. So that was kind of fun to have this be the first one I was reading. So, as we could see from the vlog footage, I don't know what all I included. I probably won't include all of the vlog footage. This one was okay. It was fine. It was like promising, but I don't know. I'll go through my grading for it. So, The Dollhouse. Going through the checklist, I'm going to give each thing a grade from 1 to 10 and then the average score, all right? So for the theme of feminism and sexual freedom, I gave this a 6. It was like there, and it was trying to be there. The feminism more than any kind of sexual freedom thing. Our main character, I'll get to that, 10, a score of 10 for a naive, sheltered main character. Because, whoo boy, this girl. She was just a very quiet, introverted, kind of mousy. And she did idolize the women a fair amount, but also kind of not. She was always like very scared, very fearful. The whole thing of like the feminism and independence, it was there towards the beginning specifically, but it kind of fell off the rails towards the end. Yeah, all of these things are wrapped up together, I guess. Because then, like, for momentous, life-changing moment, like, she had one, but there wasn't any aftermath of, like, accountability or learning some big thing from it. It literally just made her that much more fearful and nervous and anxious to be in the world. So she just basically became this hermit. New York City setting, a 9. We were very much in New York, and we did see some different places in New York, but New York wasn't, like, a part of the story all that much, if that makes sense. And then, yeah, the momentous, life-changing moment, like, situation and life lesson, I gave a 5. Because, like I said, there was a really big, like, oh my god. But it just made her, like, worse. It made her go within herself even more. Charm, humor, and wittiness. This was the biggest thing that was a drawback for me. It just didn't have that. I wouldn't say the writing style was bad or anything like that. The writing wasn't bad. The authorial voice wasn't bad. It didn't annoy me or bother me. It just didn't do that much for me. So I gave that a 4. Naive, sheltered MC, I gave that a 10 because, my god. I was so irritated. She was just dumb. Like, just dumb as a box of hair. Independence and making your own path. This is, again, like, at the beginning, very much so. She was like, I'm coming here to be... All these other girls were, like, trying to be a secretary or a model or whatever just to find a husband. And she was like, no, I actually want to make my own living. So she started off very... like, yeah, and eventually she did, like, stay and make her own living, I guess. But she just, like, yeah, went within her shell and became basically a hermit. So it's kind of like, I mean, you did it, I guess, but more so out of fear of being in the world than anything, I guess. So I gave it a 5. Like, an attempt was made. Being in the entertainment world, I gave it a 10 for that because she does start going out to very, like, seedy jazz clubs and nightclubs. Those are bad parts of town. And she started singing in these clubs with Esme and was just very much a part of that. And then older woman telling her life story with like a big reveal. I mean, that wasn't the case. We did have chapters from the past in her perspective and Darby's perspective. But then we did have chapters in the more modern time from this other woman who was investigating the dollhouse and everything and investigating Darby, and she was a whole ass fucking hot mess too. Jesus Christ. Talk about like anti-feminist messaging. Fucking hell. And so like they did have a connection. Like there was like the older woman's story having a connection with this younger woman, but it wasn't like she was telling her story up until the end when they actually met. So it was kind of there. I gave that a 5. Idolizing the glamorous worldly women, I gave it a 7. She did kind of, but then also didn't, and didn't really want to emulate them. She just thought they were pretty and like fancy. So overall, a score of 6.8. It was like trying to be that, and parts of it kind of were, and I see the similarities. I can see the similarities between City of Girls and the Dollhouse. Was it actually really like City of Girls for me? Not enough, no. I ended up giving it a 3.25. So that was the Dollhouse. Sort of a success, but not really, ultimately. And then one of the Fiona Davis books that I purchased, and I purchased it for this project, was the next one I tried, which was The Lions of Fifth Avenue. And yeah, again, I don't know if I'm including vlog footage or not. If I did, you will see that I DNF'd this one, essentially. I did like DNF it, but then I was kind of curious about stuff, so then I heavily skim read the last, like, I think it was like 40% or something, is that? Yeah, I DNF'd around 35%, and then I just like barely read. You know how you can just like look at the last like paragraph of a chapter to kind of get like the gist of like, ooh, something happened. That's kind of what I did, and then just read through to the end to see like a couple of mystery things that I wanted answered, I guess. I'm gonna put this up as well. This one, for the theme of feminism and sexual freedom, I gave it a 9. There was definitely a heavy message of feminism. This one also does have a stronger connection between the two women of the different eras, but it's once again not an older woman telling her life story to a younger woman. But yeah, so definitely a message of feminism and also sexual freedom. I don't love what happened there because, spoiler alert, she cheats on her husband, has an affair with a woman, and which, like, great to have a sapphic thing going on, but like, you cheat on your husband, and her husband was like a pretty great husband, and she talked about their awesome sex life and like her being very satisfied from their sex life. It was literally just that she was frustrated about like her place in the world being a woman, and she was kind of not sick of, but like having a little bit of resentment for being a wife and mother and like not really being allowed to be anything else. But then like her husband was supportive of her going to this journalism school, but she was dealing with sexism in this school, and she just had a lot of frustration with that. But like, and her husband was at times a little bit more like, towards the end especially, but prior to her starting this affair, he was a little bit like, I mean, just a man of that time and being a little bit selfish and a little bit like, well, my dreams take priority over yours. But he wasn't like a horrible ass about it necessarily. And I'm like, girl, you could have just had more conversations with him about it, communicated with him about how it's making you feel deep down, but instead she just went and had an affair for funsies because she was just like getting out in the world and around all these other women talking about feminism and women's rights and getting all excited about it, and then just you go and have an affair. Like, what? Okay. So I'm like, it was there. The message was there. Do I love, ultimately, the message? Not so much, but it was a heavy theme, so I gave it a 9. New York City setting, I mean, it's literally in the public library in New York, which is a major monument of New York. I mean, when I went there, the first time I went to New York, I was like, I have to go to the library. And I did. And like, people go visit it all the time. But like, and we do go to like, I think it's Brooklyn she goes to briefly a little bit, but the setting of New York isn't all that important. It's more just the setting of the library that is the biggest thing. So I gave it a 6 on that. Momentous life-changing moment and life lesson, I gave this a 3 because Jesus Christ. The thing that happens, she doesn't learn anything from it, and it just is a convenient plot point for her to get what she wants out of life. Again, this is going to be spoilers, but yeah, they find out that their son was the one stealing these books, because that's like the big mystery. These books keep going missing, and we find out that her son is the one that did it, and then they're like worried that he's gonna get shipped off to juvie for stealing these books. So wild. And they're like worried that it's gonna ruin his life. So what her husband does, after having like a violent outburst and like hitting their child and then almost hitting her, he goes and kills himself, leaving a suicide note saying that he's the one that was stealing the books. But in the midst of all this, their son runs away before even knowing that their dad is going to kill himself, and then like ends up fucking up his life anyway and never comes back, and he's living on the streets in like a little street gang. So what the fuck? And then she doesn't have anywhere to go. So her and her daughter go live with her mistress that she was having an affair with, and then they're together for the rest of her life, and they move to London, and she lives happily ever after, becoming this famous essayist. Huh? What? Low marks for this, because yeah, a big crazy thing happens, but very little self-reflection, learns basically nothing from it, and the only reason that she goes on to like live the life she wanted is because her husband's dead. So 3 for this. Charm, humor, and wittiness. I mean, it's Fiona Davis again, same author, so a 4 again. And then naive, sheltered main character. I gave a 5 for this because she wasn't really, and it didn't really matter all that much. I mean, she was a little bit, like I said, like when she goes and meets these women that are all like women's rights and like seeing women together, she's a little bit like clutching her pearls slightly, but it's not, I don't know, it wasn't that big of a thing in the story. Independence and like making your own path. I mean, that was definitely a big thing. She was wanting to go to journalism school. She was getting praise for writing this newsletter at the library and wanted to like make her own way. And she really pushed hard for it. So all of that, I gave it an 8 for that. Entertainment world, 1. I gave it a 1. I mean, really, I could probably give it a 0, honestly, because that wasn't a thing at all. So yeah, I probably should have given it a 0, but on my scoring, I put a 1. And then older woman telling her life story with a big reveal. I mean, I gave it a 5 because once again, it wasn't a woman telling her story. It was just different perspectives in these different chapters. So like, there was a connection though. There was a stronger connection in this one between the two women. But whereas in the Dollhouse, it was like the younger woman, the more modern current time woman, she was like investigating this. So she was learning the story. In this, the other woman wasn't really learning much of the story other than like kind of piecing stuff together from like notes and stuff, but I don't know, it was just slightly different. And then idolizing glamorous worldly women, 1, like not really. She kind of was a little bit in awe of like the women's rights women in the little club, but not really. So overall score 4.7. Not great. Not great. And I mean, I did DNF it, but I still scored because of what I did read and then skimming the ending of it. There were some chapters as I was skimming that I read more of the chapter, but I got the general gist of what the plot was. And then on to what I thought was gonna be the most promising one. I mean, the cover is quite, you know, reminiscent of City of Girls. And on the cover, we have a blurb from Fiona Davis saying, fans of City of Girls will adore this exploration of love and ambition. And I was like, all right, sounds cool. And I started reading it and was like, yes, hell yeah, okay. I think we're good. The authorial voice was feeling similar, not exact. It wasn't the same vibes as Elizabeth Gilbert's writing, but it was closer to that than the previous two. So I was like, okay. But it fell off the rails fucking hard later on. So, feminism and sexual freedom. I gave it a 6 for this. Again, there was a message of that, but sort of, I don't know, kind of. And the whole sexual freedom thing, this girl never learned anything about any of that. There is a sexual assault towards the beginning that happens, which like wasn't her fault, obviously. But then later she just like, I don't know, and just in response to like feeling bad is like, let me just get wasted and go home with this random guy I just met. Fuck it. It's like, girl, huh? That's your response towards the end of the book? Like, we haven't learned a single thing here. And like, and not even regarding like the sexual assault, like had that not happened, I still would be annoyed by that, because it's just like immature, childish behavior showing no character growth whatsoever. New York City setting, I gave it a 7. We are very much in New York, and it's slightly more important than it was in like Lions of Fifth Avenue, but it still just didn't have that same importance that I felt like it did in City of Girls. Momentous, life-changing moment and life lesson. Yeah, that's where shit fell off the rails. I gave it a 3 because she just was flailing. She was just flailing and passively letting shit happen to her, and just like crossing her fingers that if I just close my eyes and cross my fingers and like wish hard enough and click my heels 3 times, maybe all my problems will go away. If I just like ignore them and get drunk all the time, my problems won't be there, right? Like, no, actually, that's not how any of this works. And then, okay, I have to, again, I don't know how much, if any, of the vlog footage I'm going to include, but I was just so fucking frustrated with, it was this whole message of like finding her own way in the world, making her own way, going against what her parents wanted for her, and like being a performer and all that. And I was loving that for her. Like, yeah, girl, push through and do what you want in your life. But then it ended up having a message of do that until you find the man that is like the good man for you. Once you find him, you can give up your dreams because now you have love and that's all you need. And she was like going along with this, and then also like engaged to be married, and like, you know, wedding is being planned and whatever. And that's when they had a conversation about like, oh yeah, when we get married, you're not going to be a performer anymore, right? And she's like, wait, what? What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, no wife of mine is going to do that. And she's just like, oh, what? I'm like, why the fuck haven't we talked about this? Jesus Christ. And then she just keeps being engaged to him and being like, well, you know, I guess he's right. And had the message been, because he's kind of like partially saying no wife of mine is going to be a showgirl. I wish she had pushed back on that. But then he's also like, but also we talked about traveling the world and seeing the world, and like we can't really do that if you're tied to a club here being a showgirl. That is logical and makes sense. And if the message had been just him saying that and her grappling with giving up this dream that I had for this other new dream, that's okay. People's dreams change. People's life goals can change. You can grow and realize, yes, that was important to me and maybe it still is, but this is like a new journey I can go on and enjoy and find fulfillment from as well. That's okay. I'm not saying any woman who chooses to like have a different path now because she found the man that is her partner in life is bad. No, not at all. But like, there was just no conversation around the like, no wife of mine is going to be a showgirl. And then she just decided like, well, he makes a point. I'm like, okay. All the feminism shit is just out the window at this point. And then like the thing that happened when she was young and she, you know, was sexually assaulted, which resulted in a pregnancy that she then gave the baby up for adoption and everything, right? So then this big momentous thing that happens is her basically realizing like, I can't marry this man with this big lie. So, but she's afraid that if she tells him the truth, he's gonna leave her and think less of her, right? That's her fear. He's gonna leave her and not want to be with her anymore, and then he's gonna think she's a terrible person. Okay, for giving up a baby for adoption when she was, you know, 2 years younger and a teenager and also had been sexually assaulted, whatever. So her fucking solution is 2 weeks before the wedding to just not tell him the truth and just say, I'm not going to give up being a showgirl. Bye. I'm calling off the wedding. And then leave his ass immediately. So he's gone still. You were afraid of him leaving. You left him instead. And you were afraid of him thinking less of you. And your answer to that is, let me be a bitch that dips out 2 weeks before the wedding with no real explanation and then just never talk to him again. Pretty sure he's gonna think less of you. Like, what? You look very bad in this situation. Like, this didn't solve your problem. What the fuck? And then again, this happens and her fucking answer is just to go get hammered and like keep fucking up and keep just being chaotic and making stupid choices. And there's just no self-reflection. at all. Like, I just, oh my God. So a 3. I gave it a 3 for the life-changing moment and life lesson, because girl didn't fucking learn a goddamn thing. Charm, humor, and wittiness, I did give it a 6 because, especially towards the beginning, like I said, I was like, okay, I'm liking the main character in the beginning. She was sassafras. There was like that charm to the writing style, but then it just started to fall off. Naive, sheltered main character, I gave it a 7. She was pretty naive and pretty sheltered, but she was much braver and like trying to like get out there and like fake it till you make it kind of thing. But then there were moments of just like, girl. And also moments where like the whole thing of feminism, I'm like, does the writer think that being feminist means like acting a fucking fool in public? Because like there's a part where her mom thinks less of her for being a showgirl and like living this life and like not doing a traditional thing in life. And she meets up with her mom to have like tea or some shit, I don't know, coffee and shit. They're at a diner or at a restaurant, and like a fancy restaurant in the Plaza Hotel, and she's smoking, which is like frowned upon. Women are not to smoke in public. And I think like especially not with a man around or some shit. So the waiter is like, "Miss, could you not?" And like I get that that's fucking dumb. That's a dumbass like societal standard for like, which I mean, smoking is gross, I think in general anyway, but you know, like that women have different rules and like it's unladylike to smoke in public, but men can smoke in public. What? Okay, whatever. Yeah, that's stupid as fuck. But like that was just the rules of the time, and I get that that's annoying, and I'm not saying she couldn't push back on it at all, but she starts like making a fucking scene in this fancy ass like, you know, Plaza Hotel place with her mother, and she starts being loud and like, ugh, who cares? Let me smoke my cigarettes. And like the waiter is just like, ma'am, please stop. And people are looking, and her mom is like very embarrassed, and she's just like, this is so dumb. And like just throwing a fit kind of. And I'm like, you're just like acting out. Like you're being a childish little like a teenager is how you're acting, and just being like so stupid. And like being like, I'm just a feminist. Like you're just kind of fucking annoying and bratty really at this point. And then independence, making your own path. I mean, she tried at the beginning. That was the whole message. That was the whole thing of like, I'm gonna do what I want. My parents are gonna like kick me out. Fine. I'll figure it out. I'll go room with my friend that's another showgirl. Like, we'll figure it all out. And she does. And it's like, great, cool, great, grand, wonderful. And then she meets the man and whatever. And like I said, if she wanted to like change her goals and like, no, actually now I do want to do this thing. I did that. I did the whole showgirl thing. She was like a star. She was like the bitch, right? The main bitch. So you did that. And if now you want to change that, cool, fine. But then the only reason she gets what she wants eventually is because the stock market crashes, her parents lose everything, so then they're nice to her and say, yeah, you can raise your baby now, because the kid was adopted by her aunt, who then passed away, and then her parents were like, we'll raise her because you're unfit to be a mother. Which she kind of fucking was. Like, she was just flailing around through life with no, like, she was not settled at all. So, like, yeah, that wouldn't have been a good thing to bring a child into, girl. Like, your parents were kind of right there. They were being rude about it, but, like, they had a point. You need, like, a home and, like, a foundation, some stability in your life. And she had no stability. She was living in, like, a fucking boarding house and had called off her wedding and then was like, let me raise my baby. And they were like, no. And she's like, you guys suck. I mean, they're not saying it very nicely, but like they have a point. But yeah, then her parents, like the stock market crashes, they're losing everything. So like, yeah, take the baby. So she gets to raise her baby. And then her man loses everything too. So then he doesn't care about his societal standing anymore. So then he doesn't care to be married to a woman who's a performer. And he's like lost everything. And she has a job opportunity to go perform in Europe. And so he's like, yeah, let's do that and raise your baby and go together. So then she has a happily ever after, but it's just because the stock market crashed and the people in her life who cared about money and social standing no longer cared about that. So 5 for that. Entertainment world, I gave it an 8, which feels weird because like she was so in it, but like because so much of the book wasn't about that. Like, especially the last half, like she was still like being a showgirl kind of, but like it was just like, it was her job. It was like so much of it was just like her going to work and doing this and then outside of work doing all this other stuff. So it was like there, obviously, but also not, I don't know, it was weird, so I gave it an 8. Older woman telling her life story with a big reveal and or like a connection with a younger woman, 0, because it was literally just from her perspective. There weren't chapters from like a more modern, you know, more recent time and from another character in this modern time. There wasn't any of that. It was literally just this woman's perspective. And she wasn't like telling her story to anyone other than you, the reader. And then idolizing glamorous worldly women. I mean, I gave it a 9 for that. She was in the showgirl biz and she was one of those women, I guess. So she didn't really idolize them too much. She just was them. So this one ended up getting a score of 5.6. And then the other ones that I had on my list, I had Mademoiselle Chanel, and I cannot remember who that's by. I got it from the library, I got 5% in, and I just was like, this is not gonna be it because it's about Coco Chanel. It was historical fiction, but I was like, this isn't gonna, and it was like in Paris, and maybe at some point it was in New York, but I just got the feeling almost right away that it wasn't gonna be that, so I just took that one off the list. And then Chelsea Girls by Fiona Davis. I'm keeping this book, I'll read it someday, but it, once again, does not sound like it would be that, and having read 2 Fiona Davis books in this, I'm like, I know it's not gonna have that thing, so just didn't even start this one at all. And then this one I'm currently reading, actually, Mary Jane. I bought this one by Jessica Anya Blau. I bought this one for this because it was on the list that person had, and this one has like a more similar authorial voice, sort of, but it's not in New York. It's not, the premise is nothing like that. It's not anyone telling their life story, none of that. I'm liking it so far, but I was just like, this is not gonna be like City of Girls at all. So also took this one off the list. So of the 3 that I did actually read and feel like made sense, I could see why they were listed for being like City of Girls, the Dollhouse is the one that got the highest rating, as you saw, just because of the premise being so similar. Like, I definitely see the similarities. And then the next one was the Showgirl, which like had, oh whoops, Jesus Christ, it had so much potential in the beginning, but just fell off the fucking rails so hard, my God. And then thirdly, the one that I heavily skim read, barely read, but got the general gist and just wasn't like it at all to me. So kind of a fucking fail. I have not yet found a book that I would say really reminds me of City of Girls all that much, which is both like a bummer, but also it's like, I don't know, it makes it that much more special, I guess, right? So yeah, I guess I will just keep reading random historical fictions and maybe someday one will speak to me again. Or maybe Elizabeth Gilbert will write another one. Please, for the love of God. Jandy Nelson too, both of them. That authorial voice that I just fucking love. And they both have it, and they both need to publish more books. All right, well, I hope this was a little interesting or entertaining for someone. Let me know down below if you have read any of these and what your thoughts were, and if you have read City of Girls and enjoyed it, because maybe you didn't, which is just such a travesty, but it's okay, it's fine. But if you enjoyed it, have you ever found another book that felt similar to you? If so, definitely let me know. Or of course, leave a little emoji if you just want to say hi and make your presence known, but have nothing further to add. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.